Hello, and welcome to First Global. In this video, I will show you how easy it is to assemble this robot. This is a great platform for you to learn the basics required to build your competition robot. The first thing we will do is build the drivetrain. Since this is a simple robot, we're going to use the motors to directly drive the wheels. The two drivetrains are similar, so we'll start by building one side and then repeat the steps for the second side. We'll start with the Omni wheel assembly. Insert the two bearings into the pillow block and then push the hex shaft through. Once you have this assembled, add the Omni wheel onto the end. Adjust the shaft so there's enough sticking out to install a shaft collar on the end. Use your Allen wrench to tighten the set screw inside of the shaft collar. You'll now add another shaft collar to the other side of the pillow block so that the entire wheel assembly is secured. You then can pre-install the nuts and bolts to the pillow block so that the wheel assembly is ready to slide into the extrusion. Now we're going to build the traction wheel assembly and install it to the extrusion frame. Start by mounting your motor to your motion bracket. Even though there are 6 holes, 3 of them will be sufficient to support your motor. Use your nut driver to tighten up the motion bracket to the motor. Now that you've got your motor mounted to the motion bracket, you can slide it into the extrusion structure. The heads of the bolt might need a little realignment. Install your spacers onto the hex shaft. Place the shaft into the motor. You'll then add one shaft collar. We are filling the space between the motor brackets so everything is aligned. Having 2 supports for the shaft will stiffen the structure and reduce the amount the wheel can bend out of alignment. Because you have to install the second motion bracket with the shaft already in place, we're going to put the screws in the slot of the extrusion instead of preloading the motion bracket like we did before. Drop the motion bracket over the top of the 2 screws. Slide on the wheel and then capture it with the shaft collar. You can now take the Omni wheel assembly and slide it into the extrusion. Position it close to the end and tighten it down with the nut driver. You'll be able to adjust this as needed later on. You have one of the drivetrains complete. Repeat these steps to make the mirror image version of the assembly. Now that you have finished both drivetrains, let's move on to the rest of the robot. To mount your battery, we're going to use the flat plate and the hook and loop fasteners found in your kit to create a mounting bracket for your battery. We do this by weaving the hook and loop through the slots in the plate. Make sure all of the strips have the same side up. That way the vertical and horizontal pieces will mate. Pre-install 4 hex head screws into the corners of the battery mounting plate so that it is ready to install into the extrusions. Pre-install screws into your control hub as well. Don't forget to put the screw heads on the bottom, as they are the part that interfaces with the extrusion. The battery plate and the control hub are part of the structure of your robot and hold the two drivetrains together. With both extrusions oriented as shown, slide your controller into the extrusion channel. The back of the controller should be flush with the edge of the extrusion. Use your nut driver to tighten the bolts. Repeat this with the other drivetrain. Install the battery plate onto the other side of the extrusion. When you tighten it down, the frame will be extremely rigid. Make sure to leave enough gap in between the two plates, as your wires will be fed through this gap. Now we're going to wire up the motor. Each one of your motors comes with 2 ports. One of the ports, the 4-pin connector, is your encoder cable. Plug in both encoder cables and feed them through the gap between the battery mounting plate and the control hub. Connect them to the encoder ports 0 and 1. Now turn your robot back over and install the motor power cables. Feed the motor power cables through the gap. Make sure the motor cable is plugged into the same port as its corresponding encoder cable. Now that we have a working robot, let's add a couple sensors. We will do that by adding a sensor rail in front to mount the sensors. Let's temporarily slide the wheels out of the way so we have more room to work. We're going to attach the sensor rail to the front rails using the lap corner bracket. You must install the screw in the single hole of the lap corner bracket first to maintain accessibility to the nut. Pre-install the nuts into the other 2 holes of the lap brackets. Now install the sensor rail into the lap brackets. Center the sensor rail on the robot and then tighten everything down. Take your 2 color sensors, pre-install the screws, and then slide them into the bottom extrusion. Install sensor cables and connect them to the I2C ports. Now readjust the wheels to bring them forward. Place your battery in the battery holder and secure it using the hook and loop straps. You can now plug in the battery. You now have a fully functional robot, and it's time to start programming your creation to bring it to life. For more information, please visit our website,